The moment I walked into the country club that Saturday afternoon, my cousin Marcus looked me up and down and said, "Wow, you actually came. I didn't think you could afford the membership fee." His laugh was sharp, like breaking glass. I stood in the doorway of the grand ballroom while my entire family turned to stare. My mother was already frowning. My father looked embarrassed, the way he always did when I entered a room. My aunt whispered something to my uncle, and they both glanced at me with pity mixed with judgment. I knew exactly what they were thinking. There's Jason again, the one who didn't make it. The one who's been working the same job for years. The one we stopped expecting anything from. I could have corrected them right then. Could have told them the truth. Instead, I smiled and walked to the back corner, the place where people like me belong at family gatherings. Where people who failed sit quietly and don't make waves. But something inside me was different that day. Something inside me had finally had enough of being invisible. My family had a way of keeping score, and I had always been at the bottom of the list. My brother was the doctor. My sister was the lawyer. My cousin owned 3 businesses. And me, I was just Jason. I worked in technology, but nobody ever asked what that meant. They assumed it was some basic job, something that didn't matter. They never asked for details because they didn't care about details. They already knew the story they wanted to tell about me. Growing up, I was the smart one. Teachers said I had potential. My parents bragged about my test scores at neighborhood barbecues. But somewhere between high school and life, the script changed. I made different choices. I took risks they didn't understand. I moved away from the safe path, and when those risks didn't show obvious results immediately, they decided I had failed. They never asked about the details. They never asked what I was building. They just assumed I was struggling, and then they stopped asking at all. That assumption had become the truth everyone believed. It was easier for them that way. Easier to have a narrative than to actually know me. The country club event was supposed to celebrate my cousin's promotion. She had made senior partner at her law firm, and my family wanted everyone to know about it. There were gold balloons. There was a banner with her name on it. There was a photographer taking pictures of her with each family member. When it was my turn to stand next to her, I could feel the tension. She hugged me briefly, the kind of hug you give someone you're uncomfortable with. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "How's that job going?" she asked, the question already implying the answer. "It's fine," I said, keeping it simple. I knew if I tried to explain, she wouldn't understand. Nobody in my family understood the tech industry. They understood law and medicine and business in traditional ways. Anything outside that framework seemed vague and suspicious to them. "That's nice," she said, her attention already moving to the next person in line. I stepped aside and watched her laugh with our other cousin, the one who owned restaurants. They were talking about their latest investment property. Nobody would ask me about investments. Everyone already knew I didn't have money for that kind of thing. At least, that's what they believed. My aunt approached me while I was standing by the appetizer table. She held a glass of wine and had that concerned look adults use when they are about to say something they think is helpful but actually isn't. "Honey, I was talking to your mother," she began, and immediately I felt my shoulders tense. "Nothing good ever started with your mother. She mentioned you're still renting an apartment. That must be stressful on your salary." She said it like she was asking about something difficult, like she wanted to help me deal with my failure. "It's fine," I said, not bothering to explain. "You know, if you ever need help, if things get too tight, we could look into some options for you. Your uncle has some connections that might help you find more stable work." I thanked her, even though every word felt like a wound. She meant well, probably, but that didn't make it hurt less. She assumed I was barely surviving. She assumed I needed rescue. She assumed my life was smaller than theirs, and she wanted to feel generous by offering pity disguised as help. I watched her rejoin the group of women talking about their children's expensive colleges and vacation homes. Not one of them knew that I had already accomplished things they might never achieve, but I had kept it quiet. I had kept it to myself. The humiliation reached its peak when they played a video documenting my cousin's career path, highlighting her greatest accomplishments. They had hired a professional company to make it. There were clips of her in boardrooms. There were testimonials from colleagues talking about how brilliant she was. The whole family gathered to watch, applauding at key moments. I sat in the back, watching my family beam with pride at someone who shared their DNA. When it ended, there were tears and standing ovations. My mother actually cried happy tears. I had never seen her cry for me like that. Then Marcus stood up and made a toast. He talked about achievement and hard work and the family legacy. He said our family had always produced excellence, and our cousin was proof of that. He looked directly at me when he said it, not on purpose, but the effect was the same. The message was clear. Some of us carry the legacy, and some of us don't. Some of us rise, and some of us stay small. I excused myself and went to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the closed toilet seat for 10 minutes. I thought about my apartment, which they assumed was a tiny studio I could barely afford. I thought about the truth nobody knew, and I made a decision right there, in that locked bathroom stall, that this story was about to change. Let me go back to explain how I got here, to this moment where my family thought so little of me. When I was 12 years old, my father took me to his office. He worked in real estate development, buying properties and building them into something valuable. He showed me contracts, showed me how money could transform into opportunity. He told me that patience and smart decisions were how you built a real life. I listened. I learned. But I learned different lessons than he expected. He was teaching me traditional business, but the world was changing. Technology was becoming everything. I saw it before my family did. When I was 16, I built my first app. Nothing fancy, just a simple tool for organizing schoolwork. It wasn't profitable, but people used it. Real people. Thousands of them. My family didn't understand. They thought I was wasting time on a computer. My mother wanted me to focus on getting good grades, getting into a top university, following a clear path. But I was already following a different path, one I believed in, even if they didn't. By college, I had built 3 more apps. Small projects, learning experiences. My parents were disappointed when I didn't apply to the universities they wanted. I went somewhere cheaper. I wanted freedom to build, not student debt to repay. That choice became part of the family narrative about how I was throwing away potential. After college, I didn't look for a traditional job right away. I took time to develop something I believed in. I worked freelance while I built, earning just enough to survive. My family thought I was failing. They thought I was stuck. What they didn't know was that I was getting ready for something big. They didn't know because I stopped telling them. Every time I mentioned a project, they would ask when I was going to get a real job. Every time I explained what I was working on, they would look confused and concerned. Eventually, I stopped explaining. I stopped trying to make them understand. I just kept building. I worked from cheap apartments in cities that had tech communities. I networked with people who got it. I attended conferences they had never heard of. I learned from the best programmers in the industry. And very slowly, very quietly, one of my projects started gaining traction. It was a platform for small businesses to manage their operations. Simple idea. Clean design. It solved problems that people actually had. Companies started using it. Not hundreds of companies, at first, but then thousands. Then more. The growth was slow enough that it didn't feel real. But it was real. I was making it real. And I still hadn't told my family anything about it. There was a moment, about 3 years ago, when I knew I had made it. I didn't need to struggle anymore. I didn't need to work from apartment to apartment, living paycheck to paycheck. I had built something that mattered, something that other people valued enough to pay for. My app was being used by over 50,000 small businesses. The revenue was steady and growing. Investors were interested. But I didn't tell anyone in my family. Not my parents. Not my siblings. Not my cousins. Why? Because I was angry. I was angry at how quickly they had dismissed my path. I was angry at their assumptions. I was angry that they had looked down on me for choosing something unconventional. And I was tired of trying to make them proud. So I decided to wait. I decided to let them think what they wanted to think. I let them believe I was still struggling. I let them keep treating me like the failure of the family. Part of me knew this was petty. Part of me knew I was keeping score like Marcus did, mentally noting every dismissal, every pitying comment, every moment they treated me as less. But another part of me wanted them to feel what I had felt. I wanted the moment of realization. I wanted them to understand that they had been wrong about me the whole time. Looking back now, I can see how that decision shaped everything. It created the distance between us. It built the foundation for what happened at the reunion. The years passed. My sister got married and had 2 kids. My brother bought a house in the suburbs and talked about his big medical practice. My cousin became a partner and started wearing designer clothes. And me, I stayed quiet. I kept my success private. I bought a nice apartment, but not the most expensive one. I drove a modest car. I wore normal clothes. To anyone looking at the surface, my life looked modest. Comfortable, maybe, but not impressive. That was intentional. I had become very good at being invisible. Every family gathering was the same. Questions about my job that I would answer vaguely. Comments about when I would find a serious relationship, settle down, do something important with my life. I would smile and nod and say I was working on things. What I didn't tell them was that I was running a company that now had over 200 employees. What I didn't tell them was that I had been approached multiple times about selling the company for numbers that would make them dizzy. What I didn't tell them was that I was literally building the future of business technology in a quiet way, without needing their approval or their understanding. I was living a double life, and honestly, I was starting to feel the weight of it. Keeping that secret was exhausting, but the anger kept me going. The anger at being underestimated was like fuel, and I wasn't ready to forgive yet. Then my mother called and told me about the country club reunion. She made it sound optional, like I didn't have to come if I didn't want to. But her tone made it clear that not coming would be one more disappointment. One more way I was separating myself from the family. So I decided to go. And as I drove to that country club, I decided something else. I decided that maybe this was the moment. Maybe this was the time to let them know. Not to be mean about it, not to embarrass them, but to simply be honest about who I was and what I had accomplished. I thought I could do it quietly, maybe mention something in conversation, let them process the information gradually. I thought I could be dignified about it. I thought I could handle their shock and surprise and regret with grace. I had no idea how wrong I was about all of that. I had no idea that my cousin would make that comment about the membership fee. I had no idea that watching that video would break something inside me. I had no idea that I would leave that reunion and decide to do something I had only imagined in angry moments late at night. I thought I was prepared for anything. But standing in that bathroom, I realized I had been preparing for the wrong thing. I had been preparing to be forgiven. Instead, I was about to do something that couldn't be taken back. I left the reunion early. I told my mother I wasn't feeling well, which was technically true. My chest felt tight. My head hurt. I drove home and sat in my apartment for hours, just thinking. My apartment, by the way, was in a high-rise in the most expensive part of the city. It had floor-to-ceiling windows and a kitchen designed by professionals. It had art on the walls from artists people actually knew about. But none of my family had ever been here. None of them knew it existed. I had kept it completely separate from them. This beautiful space that represented everything I had built. Looking around at it that night, I realized something. I had been using this space to prove something to myself. But what I really wanted was for them to see it. What I really wanted was for them to understand. So I picked up my phone and called my best friend, Marcus. Not my cousin Marcus, but my actual best friend Marcus, who I had met in college and who understood everything about my work. I need to do something, I told him. And I need your help. I spent the next hour explaining my idea. It was simple and complicated at the same time. I was going to show my family who I really was. Not through words, but through action. Not through explanation, but through demonstration. Marcus listened, and then he said, "This is either the best idea or the worst idea you've ever had. Either way, I'm in." The plan took shape over the next week. I decided to host a dinner, a fancy dinner at the best restaurant in the city, a restaurant that was impossible to get a reservation at unless you were important enough or connected enough or had enough money. I had connections. Actually, I had more than that. I had invested in this restaurant 6 months ago. The owner owed me favors. So when I called, I didn't have to ask. I just had to tell them what I needed. I told them I wanted the private dining room. I wanted their best menu. I wanted everything perfect. Then I called my family. I told them that I wanted to host a family dinner. I told them it was time for all of us to celebrate together. I didn't explain why or what we were celebrating. I just asked them to clear their calendar for the following Saturday. My mother was suspicious. "That must be expensive," she said. "Is everything okay? Do you need us to help you pay?" I told her not to worry about the cost. I told her just to come. My brother asked what the occasion was. I said I just wanted to spend time with family. It wasn't a lie. I did want that. But more than that, I wanted them to see me. Really see me. For the first time in years, I wanted to be visible. The week leading up to dinner felt long. I kept replaying moments from the reunion. Marcus asking about the membership fee. The video about my cousin's accomplishments. The way my mother looked at me with concern disguised as disappointment. This dinner was going to change all of that. I called my dad on Wednesday. We didn't talk often, just occasional check-ins about nothing important. But this time, I called with intention. "Hey, Dad," I said. "I wanted to talk to you about something before dinner on Saturday." He sounded surprised to hear from me. People don't usually call their parents without a specific reason. I told him that I had been keeping something from the family. I told him that I had been building something for years, something I hadn't told anyone about. I could hear the concern in his voice. He thought I was in trouble. He thought I was about to ask for money. "No, Dad," I said. "I just wanted you to know before Saturday. I wanted you to hear it from me first." I explained my app, briefly. I explained that it had become successful. I explained that I had been keeping it quiet because I was hurt by how the family treated my path. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Jason, I didn't know things were like that. I didn't know you felt that way." And he sounded genuinely sad about it. That almost made me feel bad. Almost. But I pushed forward with the plan. I told him that dinner on Saturday was going to be special. I told him to expect something unexpected. He asked me if he should warn the others, and I said no. I wanted it to be a surprise. When we hung up, I felt lighter somehow. The secret was starting to come out. The wall I had built was starting to crack. Saturday came faster than I expected. I woke up that morning with nervous energy. I had changed nothing about how I looked. I wore a nice but not flashy outfit. I drove myself to the restaurant in my modest car. I wanted everything to surprise them based on what happened, not based on how I showed up. My family arrived in waves. My parents first, my father nodding at me like he was in on something. My sister and her husband and their kids. My brother with his wife. My cousins, including Marcus and the cousin who had made senior partner. They were all confused about the location. This wasn't a restaurant any of them would have thought to come to. It was too expensive, too exclusive, too exclusive. They were immediately impressed and suspicious at the same time. "Jason, how did you get a reservation here?" my mother asked. "I have a connection," I said simply. "Come on, let's go inside." The private dining room was perfect. Elegant but not stuffy. Beautiful without being over the top. The table was set with attention to detail. There were flowers and candles and place cards with everyone's names. The owner herself came over and greeted me warmly. "Jason, so good to see you," she said. "Your dinner is all prepared. The kitchen is ready." My family watched this interaction with confusion. They didn't understand the familiarity. They didn't understand why the owner knew me by name. But I wasn't ready to explain yet. We sat down and the dinner began. The food was incredible, each course perfectly timed and presented. My family was impressed despite themselves. They were also uncomfortable. There was tension in the room that they couldn't quite explain. My cousin Marcus kept asking how I had managed this. My mother kept suggesting this must have cost more than I could afford. Their concern masked their curiosity. They wanted to ask but couldn't quite figure out how. So I decided to help them. Halfway through the main course, I stood up. The room got quiet. Everyone looked at me with apprehension. I wasn't the type to make speeches. "I wanted to bring everyone together," I said, "because there's something you should know about me." I could see my mother tense up. She thought I was going to announce something bad. I could see my father relax slightly, like he was in on a secret. I could see my cousins leaning forward, interested despite themselves. "For the last 7 years," I continued, "I've been building a software company. It's successful. Very successful. Actually, I have over 200 employees. My clients include some of the biggest companies in the world. I've turned down offers to sell the company multiple times because I believe in what we're building." The silence was complete. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. I watched their faces go through different emotions. Shock, confusion, disbelief, then slowly, understanding. "That's why I could afford this dinner," I said, still standing. "That's why the owner knows me. That's why I have the kind of connections that get you into places like this. But more importantly, I wanted you to understand something else. For years, you treated me like I was failing. You felt sorry for me. You were concerned about my future. You suggested I get a real job. You implied that my choices were wrong and that I should have followed your path instead. And I let you believe that." I paused, looking at each of their faces. "I let you believe it because I was angry, because you didn't believe in me when it mattered. And somewhere along the way, I became someone you didn't recognize, building things you didn't understand, living a life you didn't see. And that's on me too. That's not all your fault." My brother looked shocked. My sister had tears in her eyes. My cousin Marcus looked angry, like he felt attacked. My mother looked confused and proud at the same time. My father was smiling, a small, sad smile. "I'm not telling you this to punish you," I continued. "I'm telling you because I'm tired of being invisible. I'm tired of pretending to be someone smaller than I am. And I'm tired of being angry at you for not seeing me when I wasn't letting myself be seen. So here's the new deal. Going forward, this is who I am. This is what I do. And if you want to know me, you're going to have to actually ask." I sat back down. The dinner continued in a strange, suspended way. People ate but didn't taste. Conversations happened but felt automatic. My mother kept staring at me like she was trying to see me for the first time. My cousin Marcus kept looking away and then back, processing. My brother asked detailed questions about the company, and for the first time, I answered them fully. I told him about the technology. I told him about the challenges. I told him about the vision. He listened like he actually cared. That felt good. When dessert arrived, my aunt raised her glass. "I think we should toast," she said, her voice careful. "To Jason, and to all of us learning something today." We clinked glasses. The toast was awkward but genuine. After dinner, people lingered. They asked questions. They wanted to understand. My sister pulled me aside and said, "I'm sorry I didn't ask about your life. I should have been more curious." My brother offered to help with the business side of things, said he knew some investors. Even Marcus, my cousin, came over and said, "That was impressive. I'm sorry for what I said at the reunion." These moments felt good in a small way, but also empty, because the apologies came after I had proved something, not before. They believed in me now because I had money and success. What if I didn't? Would they still be asking questions? Would they still be interested? I didn't know, and maybe that was something I needed to sit with. Over the next few weeks, things shifted in my family. My mother called regularly, asking about the company with genuine interest. My brother sent me information about venture capital firms. My sister included me in family group chats again, conversations I had been silently on the sidelines of for years. But there was something different about it all. It felt conditional now, like they were interested in me because of what I had built, not because of who I was. Or maybe that's what I was telling myself. Maybe I was waiting for them to prove they had actually changed, and nothing they could do would ever be enough. I realized I still had work to do. The anger wasn't gone just because I had revealed my success. The hurt wasn't healed just because they were now asking questions. If anything, I had made things more complicated. I had shown them the Jason they didn't know existed, but they still didn't know the Jason I had been all those years in between. The struggling, hopeful Jason who kept building even when nobody believed. The Jason who had chosen a different path and walked it alone. That Jason still deserved recognition, and I wasn't sure my family would ever be able to give it to him. So I did something I should have done earlier. I sat down and I let myself grieve. I let myself feel sad about all the years I could have had real connection with my family if I had just asked them to see me instead of punishing them for not seeing. I met my father for lunch about a month after the dinner. We went to a casual place, nothing fancy, just a diner near his office. I wanted to clear the air between us. I said some things at that dinner that I needed to say. I told him. But I want you to know that I understood you were trying in your own way. You didn't know how to help because you didn't understand my world. That's not entirely your fault. I also never gave you a real chance to understand. My father listened, and then he said something I didn't expect. Your mother and I, we grew up poor, really poor, and when we finally got money, we became afraid of anything that looked risky. We wanted safety for you kids. And when you chose something we didn't understand, we thought you were throwing away safety. We thought we were protecting you by being skeptical. But we weren't protecting you. We were just being afraid and calling it love. That was the moment I felt something shift inside me. That was the moment I could actually forgive them. Not because they had suddenly become perfect or suddenly understood me completely, but because they had finally acknowledged what they had done and why. And sometimes that's all forgiveness needs. Just acknowledgement. Just honesty. I appreciate that, I told him. And I appreciate that you let me tell you first, before the dinner. That mattered. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. We didn't say anything else. We just sat there and it was okay. It was really okay. The company continued to grow. More employees came on board. More clients trusted us with their business. The offers to sell increased. I turned them all down because I still believed in what we were building. But more than that, I was learning something important. Success wasn't as empty as I had feared it would be. It was also wasn't as full as I had hoped. Having money didn't make me happier necessarily. Having my family finally see me didn't heal all the wounds. Having their approval didn't feel as victorious as I had imagined it would feel during all those angry nights. What actually felt good was the work itself. It was knowing that my software was helping real people run real businesses. It was knowing that the employees I had hired could support their families because I took a risk that my family didn't understand. It was knowing that I had built something that mattered on my own terms. The anger that had fueled me for so long started to fade. It wasn't replaced with happiness exactly, but with something steadier. Acceptance, maybe. I had done what I set out to do. I had shown my family who I really was. I had stopped being invisible. Now the question was, what would I do with that visibility? What would I build next? I started making different choices. I invited my family into my life in genuine ways, not in ways designed to prove something. I had my parents visit my apartment. They cried when they saw it, seeing for the first time the life their son had built. I attended my niece's school play instead of making excuses. I took my nephew to baseball games and talked about my business only when he asked. I began rebuilding the relationship with my family as a person, not as a success story. It was slower than the dramatic moment at the dinner. It was quieter. It was real in a way that nothing else had been. My mother and I had coffee one Saturday, and she asked me about the struggles. Not the victories, but the hard parts. The times I wanted to quit. The moments I doubted myself. For the first time, I told her. I told her about the years living in cheap apartments and eating basic food, and wondering if I was crazy for pursuing something unconventional. She listened, and then she said, "I wish you had told me this sooner. I wish I had asked." I told her I wished she had asked too, but I also told her that maybe I wasn't ready to be asked until I could answer honestly. Maybe I had needed to believe in myself before I could let anyone else believe in me. A year after the dinner, my cousin Marcus called me. My cousin, not my friend. He had started a new business and wanted my advice. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same person who had made fun of me at the reunion now wanted to learn from me. I agreed to meet with him. We went to the same restaurant where I had hosted the family dinner. This time, I didn't invite the whole family. It was just us. Marcus asked questions about how to start a tech company, how to find investors, how to build a team. I answered his questions honestly. I didn't feel vindictive about it. I felt generous, actually, because I had learned that success felt good, but generosity felt better. I could have made him feel small. I could have made him feel the way he had made me feel at the reunion. But that wasn't who I wanted to be. "I'll introduce you to some people I know," I told him. "People who might want to invest or mentor you." He looked surprised. "After what I said?" he asked. "That was a year ago," I said. "And you didn't know me then. You were making assumptions about a person you didn't understand. I'm not interested in holding on to that." Marcus nodded. There was something like respect in his eyes. For the first time, I felt like he was seeing the real me. Not the failure, not the success, just the person. That felt different. My life didn't change dramatically after all of this. That's the thing nobody talks about when they tell these kinds of stories. I didn't become suddenly happy. My family didn't become perfect. Our relationships didn't transform overnight into something from a movie. What happened was quieter and more real. We became people who actually knew each other. My parents visited my company office and understood for the first time what I did all day. My sister and I had real conversations about our lives instead of surface-level updates. My brother and I became actual friends, not just people who shared genetics. And my cousin Marcus became someone I mentored, and there was something healing about that for both of us. The anger faded away, but it took time. It didn't disappear the moment I told my family who I was. It faded gradually, as I realized that staying angry required more energy than I wanted to spend. I still felt hurt sometimes, thinking about those years of being invisible. But the hurt was different. It was sad instead of bitter. It was something I could sit with instead of something that consumed me. That's when I knew I was actually free. Not when I had proved something to them. Not when they finally believed in me, but when I stopped needing them to believe in me in order to believe in myself. Looking back now, I can see that my family's inability to recognize my success wasn't really about them. It was about me being unwilling to be seen. I had kept my business a secret not just because I was angry, but because part of me was afraid. What if they didn't think it was impressive? What if they still didn't understand? What if I had built all of this and it still wasn't enough? By keeping it secret, I protected myself from those possibilities. But I also kept myself isolated. I made them into villains in a story I was telling myself, when really they were just people doing their best with what they knew. They didn't understand the technology industry. They didn't understand why I had chosen risk over security. But that didn't make them bad people. It just made them different from me. The real victory wasn't the dinner. It wasn't the moment they realized I was successful. The real victory was learning that I didn't need them to validate my choices for them to be good choices. I didn't need their approval for my life to matter. I never actually needed any of that. I just thought I did because I was angry. And anger is a good story to tell yourself. It makes you feel powerful. It makes you feel justified. But it also keeps you small in ways you don't even notice until you finally let it go. If I had to give advice to someone in my situation, someone whose family doesn't see them or understand them or believe in their path, I would say this: don't wait for them to see you. Don't build your success as a way to punish them for not understanding. Build it because you believe in what you're building. Build it because it matters to you. And then, when you're ready, let them in. Not to prove anything, not to make them feel bad, but because humans need connection. Because family, even flawed family, is worth trying for. Because holding on to anger only hurts the person holding it. My family and I aren't perfect now. We still have different values and different priorities. But we have something real. We have actual knowledge of each other. We have conversations that matter. We have the willingness to try. And that's more than I had when I walked into that country club feeling invisible. That's more than I had when I was punishing them with my silence. That's everything, actually. So here's what changed that night at the family reunion. It wasn't that my family finally saw me. It was that I finally decided to let myself be seen. Not to prove anything, but because I was tired of hiding, and tired of hurting, and ready, finally, to actually belong.